Hey everyone, I'm Steve from GamersNexus.net, and we're here at the Total War Suite for GDC 2016 coverage, looking at some new stuff. I'm joined by Al Bickham.
Hello.
And before we get started, all this coverage is brought to you by Raw Fury's Goner. That's a new indie platformer. Check that out. Link in the description below for more information. So Total War, the Warhammer part specifically, is a pretty cool fusion.
Yeah.
And we've seen some coverage so far, but tell us about the new stuff today.
So today we're showing off the vampire counts in earnest, and today is the day for those of you watching a bit further down the line when the trailer came out, so we're kind of rolling all this into one. So yeah, today we've actually got people playing our preview code, which lets you play as the vampire counts from the start of a campaign, and we're just seeing how far people can get with that, seeing how far into the campaign they get. So yeah, it's really exciting. They are vastly different to to any Total War faction in any other game. Even in the confines of the single game of Total War Warhammer itself, they are totally unique. They've got a bunch of unique mechanics. They can raise dead in battle. They can raise dead on the campaign map as a recruitment tool as well. So, and they have access to some really interesting kick-ass units, and they have no ranged units, which is completely unusual for any Total War faction. Yeah.
So if they have no ranged units, what's the balance there? How do they compete?
So from a kind of top line perspective, I would say that it kind of comes down to balance and the way we've approached that in the game, because Warhammer, the tabletop game, naturally has this sort of asymmetrical design where certain races have certain things, other races don't have anything like that. They have completely different stuff, so everybody has their own stuff going on. It's not like a previous Total War game where everybody gets at least some cavalry, whether good or bad, and some ranged units, and some grades of heavy, light, medium infantry. Vampire counts, for example, do not have any ranged units, and we weren't going to change that just to fit in with the Total War way of things, because that's how they are in the tabletop game. We want to be really faithful to that. So instead, they have a range of other things at their disposal. So they can raise dead, for example. So if your front line's engaged with your enemy's front line, you can if your lord or spellcaster on the field has access to that spell, he can summon a unit of skeletons or zombies to appear behind the enemy lines and attack them in the rear and stuff like that. So they also have a crumble mechanic, which is kind of modelled on, or at least in flavour, if not specific mechanics. It's modelled on the sort of crumble mechanics, the instability that undead units get in the tabletop game. So basically, when an undead unit is suffering all the same things that would normally cause morale penalties and make them run away, they don't run away. They're unbreakable. They're undead. They're already dead. They're not scared of dying. They're already dead, right? So basically, they don't flee. They are unbreakable. Instead, they have this crumble mechanic, which means when they're suffering all those kind of what would normally be negative morale modifiers, because they're surrounded, they're being attacked in the rear, they're being attacked by a particularly terrifying unit or something like that, they start crumbling because they're unstable. Bits will fall off them, the unit will start falling apart quite quickly. More models, more entities in that unit will die more quickly than they normally would. So on balance, what that means is your armies, as a series of units, viewed as a series of units, will maintain its cohesion more solidly throughout the course of a battle, but each unit is individually more prone to collapsing on itself, right? If it's particularly surrounded or being hit with all those negative modifiers. So it's kind of swings and roundabouts. But also the vampire units, from the word go, they get some flying units. They get fell bats, which are awesome for kind of swooping around the battlefields and going artillery hunting, or like chasing down fleeing units. Like you've got a unit of archers fleeing off the table, they're probably going to come back, so send your bats in super fast, zip across the sky and pick away at them, as they work like super fast cavalry, basically.
One thing we were talking about before was sort of the almost the physics mechanic, where if you've got a big heavy unit and it lands down, it does. Can you talk about that some?
Yeah, so actually we've done a lot of work on the kind of the effective mass in the system, so in the Total War battle system. So now we've got super heavy units, heavier than we've had in other Total War games, because you've got things like dragons, and when a dragon drops down out of the sky and thumps into a unit of 120 goblins, he's going to send a bunch of them flying. Obviously he's going to cause terror or fear or whatever they cause as well, and basically they have this big physical presence on the battlefield, and you can see different shades of that working. So if you get, say, I'm thinking of a light cavalry unit like Goblin Wolf Riders, for example. They're very light, they're very fast moving, they're very zippy kind of light cavalry. Now when they hit a heavily armored heavy infantry unit, maybe like a mid or high tier super tough, super armored, well shielded unit, they're kind of going to crash against it like a wave off the rocks, But conversely, if you get a unit of sort of savage orc boys riding on boars, they're really tough, big, heavy, high mass units. So if they hit a lighter unit, they'll interpenetrate, they'll knock guys flying, and so you get, it just feels more real. You get a sense of things actually interacting physically on the battlefield in a way that we haven't really, achieved before. So.
And that's a lot of math and calculations and things like that. But we were
Absolutely,
also talking about other kinds of calculations here, so AI specifically.
Okay.
And AI has been a big thing for Total War. In the very old games, back to Shogun Medieval, pretty easy to exploit some of the AI.
Yeah.
But it's gotten harder as time has gone on. So how about now with the new game, with Total War Warhammer?
So we've built, especially with the open field AI, we've built on where we were in a pretty good place with Attila. So Attila, I think, provided a nice challenge. The AI was doing all the kind of right stuff, and we've made some changes to it for Warhammer, specifically in the areas. So reserves is one area in which the AI looks more closely at the units it's got, and it won't commit everything. If it thinks it's going to win the engagements it's got involved in the battlefield, it'll hold some units back, and it will feed those units into those flashpoints as it feels it's appropriate to win those individual conflicts. So, it's much better at holding units in reserve and committing them wisely rather than throwing everything in and losing it all. So it reads we've completely redesigned the way cities work in sieges, for example. When you go into a big siege battle, we've made the cities much more readable, both for the player and for the AI. Right, it understands better how to navigate around that city. So it's going to make nice, efficient pathways to the city when it's aiming to say get to a capture point and stuff like that. And when it comes and supports you, if you're attacking a city and you're trying to knock some walls down, or you've got a big monster smashing away at the gates, it's going to go, right, those guys are going to get in the gates. There's no point in me trying to send something in to smash the gates down because you're already doing it. So it'll wait to see what you're doing, and then it'll commit its troops accordingly. So you'll get this better sort of sense of support of, as an AI ally on your side. It's, you just get this greater sense of support with it as well. So yeah, we've been working away and, doing some nice things, and it feels really good. So.
Let's talk about the vampire counts for a little bit here before closing out. So can you tell us some about the lords that have been shown for this one?
Yeah, sure. So the kind of arch vampire for the vampire counts is Manfred von Karstein, who is not only a powerful warrior, he's a dual caster, so he has access to the lore of vampires and the lore of death as well. So he's a dual caster, right? When you skill him up, you can throw points into more and more of those. Unlock a load of spells across both those effectively. Eventually, he can be upgraded to fly around on a zombie dragon as well. So he's this killer zombie dragon. Yeah. So he's going to be flying around on this decrepit, rotting horror in the sky, throwing spells around left, right, and centre. But also getting down and dirty and getting into melee as well with that big dragon fighting, that he's fighting from. So he's pretty cool. We got Heinrich Kemmler is the second. He's a sort of arch necromancer of the vampire counts. And these guys they're not like generals from previous Total War. I mean, they are like generals, but only insofar as they lead armies around the campaign map.
Kind of a combination of agents and generals, right?
Yeah, totally. But with vastly deeper skill trees, loads, and especially with Manfred, because he's got two spell laws. He's got in his, if you can visualize his skills tree, it's like he's got personal combat skills you can throw skill points into. He's got his army command skills, which improve his abilities to. He gives buffs to the units, various unit types in his army, like buffs their melee attack, melee defense, shield, all that kind of stuff. He's got a campaign skill tree, which improves, his movement on the campaign map, and various other aspects of his management style on the campaign map. Buffs sort of here and there, and then he's got two individual spell trees as well that he can throw points into, and of course he's got all his unique quest chains that he unlocks as he goes through the campaign as well. So there's so much gameplay bound up in these guys, and you can push their development in very specific directions if you want. You can make them incredibly capable leaders in battle. You can give them all these skills which bring loads and loads of buffs, and a lot of these skills stack as well. So you can upgrade melee damage for certain units in your army, but maybe you can upgrade that 3 times, you know, to give them a really strong boost. So you can totally just focus on that with Lords if you want. And actually, it's a really valid tactic in the campaign game to create specific Lords to do specific things, you know. So you get Greenskins are a good example because they have all these skills in their campaign skill tree which enable you to make more money from raiding and looting and sacking, you know, because that is that's a kind of fundamental form of income for the Greenskins, right? They're not really good at trading, and I don't know, you know, exactly, yeah, having a complex infrastructure and, you know, marketplaces, and they don't do all that, no. So they just bash stuff until money falls out of it. So, so you know, sprouts out the top. So yeah, they're. You know, so you might want to build Lords for your Greenskin armies that really are there just to make money for you on the campaign map and improve your entire campaign income. So specialisation is totally something that you can do in a way that, you know, you've never been able to do in another Total War game. So yeah.
Very cool. How about the
lots of depth?
Lots of depth?
Yeah, lots of depth.
Yeah, it looks like it.
Yeah.
How about release date, target, stuff like that?
Release date is 24th of May, I want to say. I'm a bit jet lagged, so forgive me if that's wrong. Pretty sure it's 24th of May. Yeah, we just actually announced a slip, so we slipped by about a month, which has given us a bit more polish time, which is great. You know, it just means we're going to be even more solid and stable at launch. And I mean, just play the code today, and I think you'll agree, like, we're in a really good place. It's going to, you know, we're aiming for a really kind of solid launch effectively. So, and we're really happy with where the game's at so far. You know, it's loads of fun. It's got, you know, bucket loads of variety in it between all the different races and stuff. So, yeah, I'm sure people are going to have fun with it.
It looks like it. So for more coverage on Total War Warhammer, check the channel. We did some talks on DX12, which is going to be integrated. That's freshly announced from AMD and the team here at Creative Assembly. And as always, links in the description below for more information. Thanks for watching. We'll see you all next time.